Good evening. On behalf of Dan and Steph, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I'd like to thank Dan and Steph for picking a reception hall that has air conditioning. You know, over the past couple months as I prepared for this speech, I read somewhere that the best man's speech should last no longer than the groom makes love on the evening of his wedding. With that said, thank you, and that's it. I first moved into Framingham State College in 2003, and one of the first people I met there was the girl who lived directly across the hall from me. And come to find out, her name was Steph Mahoney. Steph and I shared a common group of friends, and over some time, our group of friends became bigger, and one person in particular was a kid who lived directly across the hall from us, directly down the hall from us. Come to find out, his name was Dan Billings. Now, over some time, Dan and I became good friends, and over some more time, Dan and Steph became very good friends. I remember saying to Dan at the time, Dan, we're here to study and we're here to learn. We're not here for the girls. Long story short, as you may suspect, Dan didn't listen. A couple weeks later, they were going out. Now, I just want to share with you some of the beginnings of Dan and Steph. After all, I did witness most of it. I remember when Dan asked Steph out. It was Halloween night, and Steph demanded to know where their relationship was headed. She wanted to know what the future held for them and what they were doing, and Dan said, all right, well, will you go out with me? And Steph said, well, it's Halloween night. I wouldn't want our anniversary to be on Halloween, so why don't you ask tomorrow? So the next day, Dan asked Steph, hence their anniversary, November 1st, 2003. I remember the first gift he bought for Steph. He came to me and said, you know, I want to buy her a gift. It was right around the time they started going out, and he said, I don't know what to get her. Will you come to the mall with me? So me and Dan went to the mall, and you know, I'm thinking he's going to get her some flowers or candy or jewelry. Not Dan. Dan decides to drag me into the store for Build-A-Bear. Serious. And for about 30 minutes, he built Steph a bear from scratch. Not just any bear, a bear to resemble himself. Serious. No, he had the baggy jeans, the sports jersey, backwards hat, earring, gold chain. You still owe me for that. I remember the first time Dan met Steph's family. It was a Sunday. Steph's mom called and said, you know, I'd like for you to come to dinner, and you should bring Dan so that the family can meet him. And Dan didn't want to go alone, so he asked if I could come along with him. I did. I went with him. We get down there, we meet Steph's immediate family, mom, dad, David, LaMarie, and Steph's cousin Lori was also there with her husband, Greg Rugemer, who plays in the NFL. And at one point during dinner, I looked up at Dan and I saw a look of true love in his eyes. But when I took a second look, I couldn't tell if he was looking at Greg or at Steph. I remember Dan and Steph, they'd go to Holbrook on the weekends and hang out with Steph's high school friends, many of whom are here tonight. And I'd go along with them from time to time, and that's where I met my girlfriend, Kate. And, you know, over some time, Kate and I started going out, and the four of us just became the best of friends, and we got an apartment together right down the street from school for almost 3 years. And we just had awesome times, and I know we'll look back and think we met some of the funnest days of our lives. And fast forward another couple of years, and here we are. So, without further ado, here's to Dan and Steph. So, all the memories that we get to come. Congratulations, I love you guys. Cheers.